So there's this guy, and his life has sucked. I mean, this guy has been put through the ringer. His parents died at a young age, he got into drugs, he fell in the wrong crowd of people, and now he's 25 years old, and he's still with the wrong crowd of people. It'd be that way. And he's known as the guy that does all the hard, tough jobs. Illegal ones. So his boss comes to him one day and says that he has been requested to do a very specific job. His boss tells him he doesn't know what the job is yet, he just knows that they're offering millions of dollars. And then if he accepts the job, the person who hired him will be sending him the information anonymously. So he hears $1 million and he's like, I'll take it, I'll take the job. He needs this money. I need it too, but whatever. Anyway, he accepts the job, and a few weeks later, a package shows up on his doorstep. He opens up the package, and inside is what he needs to do. Whoever hired him needs him to kidnap somebody. I mean, he's never done that before, but it seems pretty simple, right? Wrong. The person he has to kidnap is the president's daughter. Now he's freaking out. He's accepted the job. He can't back out. Backing out of something like this means one thing. He'll be, killed if you didn't understand, but anyway. So he has to do 3 things. Grab the girl, take her to the address that was given to him deep within the mountains, and then hand her over to whoever requested the job. It's game time. It's the day of the kidnapping. He's been watching her for weeks. He knows her every move. Is when she's leaving school with her friends. He takes her, throws a bag over her head, ties her hands in ropes. She's crying, she's freaking out. He drives for a few hours and they reach the location. It's some random house in the mountains. At this point, she's still crying. He gets out of the car and looks around, but nobody's there. So he thinks, maybe they're in the house. He grabs her, takes her up the stairs, and knocks on the door. No answer. Somehow she gets the bag off of her head, and all of a sudden, she stops crying. I mean, she turns completely calm. Way too calm. As her hands are tied up, she reaches out and punches in a code on the door keypad. The door unlocks. He follows her into the house. She turns to him and she says, take these ropes off my hands. He says, no, somebody's coming to get you. She looks at him and she goes, nobody's coming. He looks at her, he's like, what do you mean nobody's coming? Someone better be coming. I have the president's daughter. I will go to jail for life. She grabs him, looks him in the eyes, and says, don't ask questions and don't reach out to anyone. It's time for me to disappear. I am going to fake my death and you are going to help me. Did she set this all up? Was she the anonymous person? Why does she need to disappear? Will they succeed in faking her death? And why did she choose him?
Story time about how my brother caught me making out with his girlfriend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Growing up, I didn't have a really good relationship with my parents or with my brother. The only person that I did get along with was my sister. You see, we're kind of a religious family. When I was 15, I knew that I liked girls, but there was no way that I would tell my parents that I did. They would never accept that their daughter liked other girls. I basically suppressed all of those feelings for about 5 years. When I turned 20, I decided to come out to my sister. My sister was super open, accepting, and she was really loving about it. She never once made me feel bad. I asked her what she thought about me telling the rest of the family, and she said definitely not. She knew that our parents would freak. I finally got my first girlfriend a year after that. I actually met her on my 21st birthday. At this point, I still live with my parents, so I basically said that she was a best friend of mine. My parents, of course, believed me because they had no other reason not to. She would come over to my house, and we would just spend time together there. She eventually got really upset that I would never tell my parents about us, and she decided to break up with me because of it. Of course, I was brokenhearted about it, but 3 weeks later, I met my brother's now girlfriend. Right off the bat, we got along really well. Like I said before, I never had a really good relationship with my brother. He suspected that I liked girls, but he never came out and told me. But because of this, there was always tension between us. Also, I never understood why his girlfriend liked him because he has no personality and zero sense of humor, which is honestly why I think her and I got along so well. Anytime she came over to our house, I would just find her so funny. My brother had to go out of town for work, so she invited me to go out with her friends for lunch. Of course, I quickly accepted. I honestly didn't realize it at the time, but I was definitely developing a crush on her. She was my kind of girl. I mean, I guess my brother and I have the same type. She was funny and incredibly smart. After that lunch, she asked me if I wanted to hang out another 2 times when my brother was away. Everything was going pretty well, but after the 3rd time that we hung out, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I knew this was going to be a really big problem for me. I'm the kind of person that's always honest with people as much as I can. When my brother finally came back, she started coming over to the house more. I was both excited but worried at the same time because I knew that I had feelings for her. One day she came over over, but there was nobody home. That's when I decided to be honest with her and tell her the truth. I opened up to her and told her my history and that I had a crush on her. She smiled and told me that it was okay. That's when she grabbed my hand and we started kissing. Trust me, I know that it's totally wrong because she's my brother's girlfriend, but I was falling in love with her. That's when my brother comes in and sees us making out. That's when my brother comes in and catches me making out with his girlfriend. He instantly went berserk and started punching a hole through a wall. His girlfriend tried to calm him down, but he told her that if she touched him, he would probably end up hitting her. Luckily, no one else in the house was home, but my brother threatened to tell my parents. Like I said in part 1, my parents are very religious, and I knew that they would never accept me as I am. That's when my brother said that he had already been suspecting of me and his girlfriend because her and I had been hanging out so much. He then started calling me a bunch of names like freak and other really inappropriate things. Then the fight became about him and his girlfriend. His girlfriend started telling him that she had been miserable the whole time that she was with him and that he had been manipulating her the whole time. She told him he was even toxic, which I can believe because my brother's kind of like that. She then left the house and told him that she never wanted to see him again. My brother started asking me a bunch of questions like how long I had been seeing her. I told him that this was the first time her and I had ever kissed. Then he told me that I needed a man to teach me how to be a woman. So instead of staying and arguing with him, I decided to leave. I decided to go ahead and tell my parents the truth before my brother did. I was absolutely petrified. I told my parents that I like girls, and I told them what had happened with my brother's girlfriend. That's when my dad told me that they weren't upset that I like girls, and that they would have accepted me either way. But they were really upset that I had hurt my brother's feelings, and that I caused them to break up. They were surprisingly okay with what I had told them. I mean, after years of being petrified of them knowing the truth, I felt so free. But I also told him that my brother had been toxic towards her and that's why she didn't want to be with him anymore. My parents actually ended up being more angry with my brother than with me. But you'll never guess, a few months later my brother told my parents that he's bi. I haven't contacted my brother's ex, but I really feel like I should. I mean, I was falling in love with her. What do you guys think I should do? P.S. My brother's much happier.
So there's this 17-year-old girl who sneaks out of her house every night to just drive. She's not going anywhere specific, she just does it as a stress relief. Well, one day she leaves at her normal time in the middle of the night. She drives for a few hours and then starts heading back. She goes up to her window to try to sneak back in, but it's locked. That's weird because she didn't lock it. Risking getting caught, she goes to the front door and unlocks it and goes inside that way. Half asleep, stumbling into her room, she freezes. Her room is different. Squinting in the dark, she sees something. Someone is in her bed. Trying to stay quiet so she doesn't wake up the intruder in her bed, she rushes to her parents' room. She starts knocking on her parents' door. They open the door and she immediately starts telling them, "Mom, Dad, someone's in my room, someone's in my bed." And for a second, they just look at her. And then their entire demeanor changes. They start yelling at her, "Who are you? How did you get in our house?" Confused and scared, she's like, "Mom, Dad, it's me, it's Abigail." They say that they have no idea who she is and if she doesn't get out, they're calling the police. Scared and confused, she runs out of the house and gets to her car. On the verge of tears, she pulls into the police station and runs in. Running up to the policeman, she says, "Please, I need help. There's an intruder in my house and I think that they're forcing my parents to act really strange." The policeman stops her and he says, Miss, I'm going to need you to calm down and just tell me your name." She says her name is Abigail Reese and she gives him her parents' address. But then the police officer goes from looking worried to annoyed. He said, "Miss, I don't know which one of your friends put you up to this or dared you to do this, but we're not putting up with these pranks anymore." She stops him and she's like, what do you mean? This isn't a prank." He looks at her and says, "Kid, there is no such thing as an Abigail Reese." And he tells her to get out. Walking out, she's crying and she grabs her phone and looks up her social media. Everything is gone. Any trace of her life on the internet is gone. In tears, she looks up from her phone and sees some random guy leaning against her car. He stares at her for a second and then says, "They didn't believe me either." Huh? Seeing her confusion, he starts talking again. He says to her, "I woke up this morning to everyone not knowing who I am. Apparently, I don't exist. I heard you in there while I was walking out. They told me the same thing, but now I know I'm not crazy. Now, are you gonna stand there and stare at me, or are you gonna help me figure out why the hell we don't exist?" How did this happen? Is this some extremely realistic hallucination? Who is this guy? Why has the world erased their lives? And are there others? This could honestly be a TV show.
Storytime about how I was stabbed 10 times while protecting my girlfriend. When I was younger, I had a girlfriend whose family was affiliated with the gang the Latin Kings. One night I was with her brother, and her mother in a store in the north side of Houston, which is the hood. We ran into the son, mother, and sister of this other family that they had a problem with. As soon as they spotted each other, they started talking trash back and forth. It escalated so much that the man from their family called out my girlfriend. In the hood, it's common for a woman to fight a man. I was stuck at first because I had never seen anything like this until that moment. However, I didn't hesitate. When he started inching towards my girlfriend, I walked up to him, grabbed him, and started swinging. I wasn't aware aware at the time that he had a weapon nor that he was using it on me during our fight. This went on for a few minutes until his family broke us apart. Then he went back to talking trash to my girl and he finished it with, "Shut up, B, before I stab you too." At that moment, we all got quiet. I looked down and saw a puddle of blood under me. That's when the realization set in of what had happened. I was barely in any pain, but that's probably because my adrenaline was on fire. They quickly took off and we went back in the store. My girlfriend and her mom were crying. I remember sitting there and looking at the blood, then taking out a cigarette and smoking it as I waited. I felt nothing but peace in that moment. It was the most peaceful feeling I've ever experienced in my life. I guess it's because I knew that this was fixing to be it and none of it matters anymore. I was okay with the thought of death. However, it seems that my story wasn't meant to be over yet. I was rushed to the ER by an ambulance. At this point, the adrenaline had worn off and the pain started to set in. Every time I moved my neck, it felt like it was breaking. They cut open my stomach so that they could fix the internal bleeding. The doctor also told me that if the wound on the neck was a little to the right, I would have been paralyzed, and if it was a little to the left, I would have died. He also told me that if the wound on my rib had gone a centimeter deeper, my lungs would have been punctured. I guess I got lucky there. The recovery took over a year, and it was a long and painful process. My family cried and visited me every day when they found out. I was charged over $10,000 for the ambulance ride, surgery, and additional medical costs. It left me in crippling debt before my adult life even started. A few years later, I went to prison. My girlfriend from that time and I had broken up as she treated me terribly, and after 2 years, I was done. Her brothers had told me in the hospital that if I hadn't stood up and did what I did, they would have sorted me out themselves, so either way I would have gotten hurt. However, this experience taught me to never stand up for anyone unless they're worth dying for. I never saw my ex again until she appeared on the MTV show Catfish. I also never ended up paying those medical costs, and I hope they don't pursue me. I recently got out of prison and I've come to appreciate life because of its adversity. After 6 years in prison, I've come to enjoy the simplest things that people take for granted. I'm happier now than I've ever been.
I am genuinely so terrified of national parks because of all the missing persons cases, in addition to a lot of the unsolved mysteries that have happened within it. And one of the most terrifying ones is one that happened just back in August. We're going to be talking about the case of the Garish family today. So on Sunday, August 15th of 2021, John, his wife Ellen, and their 1-year-old daughter Miju went out for a hike, also taking their dog Oxy with them. They had recently moved to Mariposa, California in order to get away from the big city. They were very avid, very experienced hikers who really loved enjoying the outdoors with their daughter. Well, the nanny came at her scheduled time the next day and found the house to be completely quiet. There was no one home. Obviously, you don't want to panic too soon, but by 11 p.m., she was definitely worried. So she contacted the house manager, and then they contacted Missing Persons Report. And law enforcement reacted immediately. One of the Mariposa County sheriffs knew that they were new in town and lived really close to a trailhead called Heights Cove Trail. And it was so close that they could have just walked to it. So that Tuesday morning at 2 a.m., they found the family truck parked in that parking area right outside of the trail. So about 1.5 miles from the parking lot where they found the Garish family's car, their deceased bodies were finally discovered. There were no signs of trauma to the head, to the body, no bites, no puncture sites, no burns. And when sent off to get an autopsy, their results were inconclusive. Authorities say they have not one clue what happened to them. We are currently waiting on a toxicology report, and I might wait to post this until we have that, which will hopefully help identify what happened to this family. But there's just so many weird things to be talked about with this case. One TikToker that I found was talking about the way that they were positioned. John was found in a sitting up position next to his baby and next to his dog, while Ellen was just a little bit up the hill. While some people have speculated that maybe she was leaving to go get help, their only cell phone was in John's pocket, so she probably would have grabbed the phone first, right? For some reason, they also ruled out foul play, which I don't know how you can do that if you don't know what happened to them. Another thing that was very much speculated was maybe poisonous gas. There was no active mines within 3 miles of that area, so that was ruled out as well. So what happened to the Garish family? Because the whole thing is just so off. It almost seems like they just randomly dropped dead all at the same time, yet no other wildlife in that area were found dead around them. And the deputies who stayed the night with the bodies to protect the scene were not sickened in any way. Something that they haven't ruled out yet is toxic algae. Like maybe they had accidentally drank these algae blooms. Usually the water is really colorful and it has a certain smell. And it might be my own lack of knowledge, but shouldn't everyone's bodies be reacting differently to algae poisoning? Like they wouldn't have all just died simultaneously. Gas poisoning just seems more logical to me for that scenario, but they ruled that out already, in addition to the wildlife around them being okay. Also, where were the other hikers? It was a nice day out and this was a very common trail, so there's just no way that people hadn't have passed them that day. Some people even suspected heat stroke, but again, it's weird that it's all simultaneous. Investigators are really looking into this, so hopefully the family will have answers soon. My heart really goes out to them. I'll keep you guys updated and please stay safe while hiking.
Okay, so story time. By the way, follow @Glam by Helen on Instagram and send me your stories. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. There was this girl, we'll call her Braylon, who had just moved in next to me. This girl was in the same school as I was and the same grade. Definitely didn't take her long to get popular though. I'm gonna be completely honest. I did not like this B word. I think you know what I'm saying. I just had a feeling from the moment I met her. There was this one time during class where she just walked up to me and called me a fat ass B word. Like, huh? What? It doesn't make sense. And here's where shit went downhill quick. So we live in a small town called Callahan, and right beside us there's another small town called Hillard. There's this doctor's office / clinic in Hillard that pretty much half of my school goes to. So this one particular time, I went with my friend to get her flu shot. Surprise, surprise, my neighbor was there. Okay, so there ended up being a little wait room that you could sit and wait until the nurses call you in. When they call you in, there's like this little hallway with a weight scan thing. The little B-word's mom was in tears because her daughter had weighed 246 pounds. And me and my friend got in trouble because we started busting out laughing. Not at her, but her mom. And the second she called me a fat B-word, I screamed that out loud and my friend yelled I'm the friend she went with. FYI, I weighed like 184 pounds at the time. And she never spoke to me literally ever again. So about 2 weeks after that little incident, it was summer break and it was Friday. So for me, that meant my boyfriend was allowed to come over. And before he came, I told him that I had a dentist appointment. Plus, my nana was sick and I didn't want her to be alone, so I wanted him to stay at my house anyways. Well, when I came back home from my dentist appointment, I went straight to my nana's room to check on her and she was asleep. So I went to check on my nana and she was asleep. Then I went to my room where I knew my boyfriend was in it. And before I opened the door, I heard moaning. I slung that door open and I'm pretty sure you know what I saw. I grabbed that blonde-headed, big-nosed B-word by the hair and dragged her all the way to my back door, which was literally right beside my bedroom. After I did that, I told her if she didn't get the hell off my property, I was calling the cops. She ended up leaving, and all she had on was a bra and some shorts. Right after that, I went back to my bedroom and told my boyfriend to get out of my house. The next day, I went and told her mama what she did, and my boyfriend and my house in my bedroom on my bed. There is just no common sense. Her mom beat her ass, and I recorded it and kind of posted it on Instagram. By the way, half the school didn't like her anymore after I called her out. And then there was my boyfriend. Well, ex. I ended up inboxing the entire school and telling them what happened, and payback hit them hard. Now, I wouldn't say I'm popular, but everyone likes me and I have a new boyfriend. My ex got kicked off the football team because someone went running to the teachers and told them everything. But yeah, so don't do this to people and you won't get the karma coming back to bite you.